If a CEO comes to you, CEO, CTO, CXO, comes to you and asks you, Jeff, I'm investing heavy in AI this year, what is the first question you ask them?
The first question I love to ask is,
Hi, everyone. This is the Zeroed In podcast here. We have Jeff Winter today to discuss manufacturing and AI in manufacturing. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So Zeroed In is a podcast from Think Zero. We're a company that helps people in manufacturing most of the time adopt IoT, connect OT to IT infrastructure, and make the most of their data, leveraging AI. In short, what are you doing these days, Jeff?
Flying all over the world, speaking, participating in events, helping companies out, and adapting to my new role at Belden.
Yeah, so we discussed in the past on other shows and other places a lot about manufacturing, digital transformation, adoption of technology in manufacturing in general. The topic I want to focus on today, more particularly, is AI. So AI in manufacturing is said to be widely adopted. You know, manufacturing is said to be the industry that is using the most AI. What does that actually mean?
Well, it really depends on how you define AI in this case, because there's some reports that show that manufacturing is leading in AI adoption. There's other reports that show it's dead last. So it really does depend on how you define it. But so I'm going to try and say, like, how does it usually show up? So it usually does not mean humanoid robots or self-driving factories or self-optimizing factories or any of the really cool futuristic stuff. What I find is it more means that manufacturers have been embedding statistical models, optimization engines, and machine learning inside operations. And they've been doing that for years. And that's why some reports would show manufacturing higher in the use of AI. Things like predictive maintenance, yield optimization, quality anomaly detection, supply chain forecasting, energy optimization. These are high value, high variant environments where small improvements can compound across millions of units or millions of data points. And manufacturing is AI dense because the physical world is measurable. You have sensors, you have PLCs, SCADA, MES, ERPs, software. There's structured data, and it's tied directly to cost. It's tied to throughput. It's tied to risk. And that makes it ideal training ground for any sort of applied artificial intelligence. But I would say here's kind of the nuance to that, because being a big user of AI doesn't mean AI at the enterprise level is intelligent. And I would say, because most deployments right now, especially in manufacturing, they're narrow. You know, a model predicting a bearing failure, an algorithm optimizing a schedule. Valuable, yes. Transformational, not so much. So when we say manufacturing is a top AI adopter, I think what we really mean is that AI is embedded into pockets of operational decision making. So I'd say the bigger question is whether those pockets are connected, whether they're contextualized and driving enterprise level learning. And that's a very different conversation.
Yeah, interesting. Especially as what I'm seeing these days in terms of reports is the fact that there are many, like I've read reports like up to 70 or 80% of digital and AI transformation failing. So it's interesting to see, hey, there's a lot of interest, a lot of reason to leverage AI or to transform your infrastructure, your business digitally. Is it really failing? Are these reports, accurate?
So there is a famous report from McKinsey that came out in 2016. Now, this is more focused on digital transformation because that was the bigger thing back then. But it said that a whopping 70% of digital transformations fail. And that statistic has been cited many times by people, often not knowing that it came from a 2016 McKinsey report. So your logical question is to understand, well, why did that happen? And the second being, yeah, that was 2016. Surely since then, things have gotten better, right? Well, I have found on my own three different reports that came out shortly after then. In 2020, Boston Consulting Group found that roughly 70% of digital transformations failed as well. In 2021, Everest Group came out and said it was something like 68% said that they failed. I think Couchbase in 2021 also showed a higher number, something like 82% of digital transformations didn't work the way that they were, intended to work. So when you look, now you got different years, different companies, different studies, and they're all kind of saying a similar thing. And so it ends up, begging the question, what gives? So you look at that. Then here's another thing I'll throw on top of it. KPMG in 2022 found that 99% of digital transformation initiatives returned a 1% or higher ROI. So you end up having multiple reports showing that digital transformations fail. And then you show a report that says 99% are returning at least a net positive return on your investment. How can that be? There are similar things that have come out since then, specifically focusing on AI, as high as 95% from an MIT study on failures. So, how is that possible when there are AI reports that show high ROI numbers as well? And part of the way that I'm seeing this from my lens is because a lot of people don't necessarily frame the word transformational correctly. And what they're really thinking is they're more modernizing a system or optimizing a process and not really transforming something. So you're grading these wrong. And what happens is you have you're deploying a technology to make an improvement or to enable a capability, and you can have an ROI on that particular project or initiative, but it misses the bigger intent of what you're trying to do. So, do I personally think that that most digital transformations fail? I think that if you graded them differently, we would have be demonstrating more success than we would if we break down these massive ideal transformations into smaller initiatives that make an impact in the company, and we show data to support that.
Interesting. So these reports talking about digital transformation back in 2016, are telling us there was a digital transformation or really initiated then. Can we talk about AI transformation today? And is it any different? And is the risk the same as for digital transformation? We're going to hit the wall for 70% of the project when it comes to pure AI implementation in projects?
So AI is fundamentally different in its capability, but organizations are responding to it in familiar ways. And that's where I like to think of it as digital transformation. It was and still is for a lot, largely about digitizing processes, improving visibility, and connecting systems. At its core, it was a kind of a binary thing. You were running on paper and spreadsheets. Now you're not. You had implemented MES, you had implemented ERP, you integrated them, the structures, connected, the workflows connected, or they weren't. The value came from standardization, it came from traceability, and it came from data availability. But intelligence transformation, which is what I like to refer to as the use of AI in the actual change of the business, it's more of a natural evolution of that journey, because once your processes are digitized, the next step is asking whether decisions themselves can actually be augmented or automated using artificial intelligence. But this is where the complexity explodes. Intelligence, by definition, is about replicating elements of human reasoning. So it's contextual, it's adaptive, it learns, it evolves with new data. And this makes it fundamentally far more complex than just digitizing a workflow. Digital systems execute rules. Intelligence systems infer patterns. They weigh trade offs and adapt over time. And this means that the operating model can't remain static. Governance, accountability, and even decision rights must evolve continuously. And so you're no longer just like implementing a system, you're introducing a learning entity into your organization. And yet, most companies are repeating the same mistake. They're deploying technology before redesigning the way that work gets done. So during digital transformation, they installed systems without rethinking processes, those that didn't do
Mm.
it well. And now they're layering on an AI on top of fragmented architectures without redefining decision ownership. So intelligence transformation, I view it as it's not a plug-in phase of digital. It's a deeper, more dynamic redesign of how the entire company thinks and acts. And that's why it's both the logical next step and exponentially harder.
Yeah, it's definitely way more profound in terms of change. The way you're describing makes sense. I heard you talk about, and maybe that's related to that complexity or to that nature of AI or intelligence in terms of transformation. You're saying that we're not building enterprise intelligence, but rather we're building point intelligence. Is it because of that complexity, or how deep that transformation goes, or and what's the difference between that notion of point intelligence and enterprise intelligence?
It's a great question. And it's, yes, something that I try and regularly talk about. I view it as point intelligence solves a specific problem, and enterprise intelligence understands context across the organization. So, point intelligence might predict machine failure. Enterprise intelligence understands how that individual failure affects customer delivery, revenue, inventory, workflow allocation, risk exposure. It learns how to take that, propagate it through the entire organization. So, point intelligence optimizes locally, enterprise intelligence arbitrates globally. And today, most AI in manufacturing, most industries, I would say, is embedded inside of applications. You may have like a smart or intelligent MES feature that utilizes AI, a predictive maintenance tool specifically. You may have an optimization engine built into your software added on. Each is intelligent within its own little boundary, but the enterprise itself does not reason as a whole. It does not get more intelligence as a whole. Data definitions differ, KPIs conflict, and decisions escalate because there's no system authority across the domains. And so enterprise intelligence requires like semantic consistency, shared models of reality, a shared source of truth, connected systems. And there are few, if no, companies that really have an enterprise level intelligence yet. That's further on for us to get to, but you can start to get there by building up your point solutions, your point intelligence. But unless you have a strategy for how they're all going to work together, you'll never increase in your company's overall intelligence or capability.
Interesting. So concretely, when a CEO comes to you and say, "This year I'm going to heavily invest in AI in my company," what is the first question you ask them?
I love this question. And I love to start by asking something so simple. What is your definition of artificial intelligence? And it's kind of half joking, it's half serious, but I've learned very few executives can answer that clearly. I'd actually say very few people can answer that clearly. And if you can't define what you think AI is as an executive, it becomes very difficult to be intentional about what you expect from it. I mean, are we talking about automation? Are we talking about analytics? Are we talking about generative co-pilots, autonomous decision making? That ambiguity matters. But I would have to say, like, more seriously, after kinda understanding what they know or don't know about what they think artificial intelligence is, I like to ask a hypothetical. That is, if AI worked perfectly, what are you hoping it really does for your company? And that question, it forces clarity, because are they thinking about it as an optimization layer? Are they thinking about it as a productivity enhancer? Are they viewing it as a cost reducer? A faster way of generating reports? They see it as something more fundamental in how the company reshapes how decisions are made, or how their customers are served, or how the business model operates. And I view it as the goal of that question is to understand the scale of the ambition. Because applying 100 small AI point solutions across the enterprise can absolutely generate ROI. If that's all you want, is to improve productivity or reduce costs. It can help you with your margins. It can help with downtime, streamline workflows, but it will not fundamentally change how the company operates, how it creates value, captures value, or how people work. If the aspiration is transformation, then the conversation quickly shifts from tools to architecture, to operating models and to governance. And if the aspiration is incremental improvement, which is also fine, then the strategy needs to match that. And that's what I find is the strategy matching the ambition.
Interesting. And that gives potentially different perspectives in the same enterprise regarding AI and how it should be implemented. And more than ever, a need to have not just a top-down decision on AI adoption and what direction to take, but also some bottom up, right? And it's interesting the way you're describing point intelligence versus enterprise intelligence. I could see CXOs, leadership more interested in that enterprise intelligence aspect because they have this big picture of everything working in the company. And then you have everyone in their own silos or business unit looking at point intelligence. How can I leverage AI for efficiency here? How can I deliver more? How can I do more there? But more than ever, if you want to adopt AI in the right way, you have to talk to each other and you have to have this connection between lower levels and executive team, right?
Absolutely. And this is where it gets tricky and why the subject is so difficult. AI is so expansive and so ubiquitous and applicable everywhere that you need to have both. You need to have the vision come down from the CEO in terms of what type of company we want to be with AI and how is AI going to guide our company
Right.
in a different direction. That needs to come from them so everyone understands the role that AI plays in the company's business strategy. But at the same time, you also need to assign the importance of what to do and how everyone can leverage it. And there's two general ways I like to do this. One, at the departmental or functional level, the leader of that in the team needs to evaluate ways in which AI technology can help that function perform better by potentially rechanging the function, leveraging the technology. The second layer is to, in theory, assign to everyone in the company an assignment to go look up and figure out how AI can help you perform your job better based off of what's currently available in the marketplace. That's not a functional change. It's not a company direction, but something as simple as would ChatGPT help you perform your job? If you're a salespeople using something like Zinnia, would that help you as a salesperson? If you're an engineer, industrial mind, that help you? There's hundreds of thousands of solutions out there. Force them to go look at what's available and what could be easily purchased or used free to help them perform their job. Because it's very different to look at how AI will change marketing as a function versus having 100 marketing people using a off the shelf, SaaS AI tool that they can pay for individual licenses to help them perform their job better. But if you don't have the people take the initiative on it at the individual or functional level, you'll never really understand all the full capabilities in which AI can absolutely help the company out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And from the pure like tactical perspective, if a company wants to be ready for enterprise intelligence in let's say 5 years, what are you telling them to go do in that first year, tactically speaking?
At a enterprise level, not the individual level, it is all about making sure that you have all your systems properly connected and you focus on your data foundation. AI thrives off of data. And if your company data isn't clean, contextualized, properly indexed, normalized, and readily accessible, then your AI is always going to be limited on what it can do. It can only be potentially tied to a point solution, or it has to rely on external data and not your company's data. So that is going to benefit you amongst most of your digital transformation journeys and your intelligence transformation. But I view it as if you don't get your data in line, your AI is always going to be handicapped. And that's why I view it as there's such a bigger focus right now on IT/OT convergence and getting your data properly contextualized and accessible is because people know I can't do that cool AI thing unless I have this in order.
Yep. Yep. Data contextualized, enriched, modeled as well, leveraging digital twins and platforms like that. It begs that question, which is certainly my last one here. Until recently, even like during classical, let's say digital transformation, big companies were able to hire people and do everything in house. We're adding so many layers of complexity and domain specific expertise requirements with AI. There's data science, and all the things that go around that. Is it something that today companies can still go do on their own, or is there a need to have even more collaboration, even more call to experts for integrating solutions than ever before?
It's a good question. And I'd have to say, once again, AI is so ubiquitous in its applicability that this answer may differ depending on the view that we're looking at or the application that we're looking at. Because there's going to be components of AI, let's just say that you apply to your company that will give it competitive advantage. And that should be something that you inherently own and you build it. Now you may outsource some of the components to building it if you don't have that expertise or capability in house, but your company takes on the ownership of that because it becomes part of your core asset and your competitive advantage in there. But at the same time, there's a bunch of off the shelf systems that are more horizontal in their application, that are more for continuous improvement, that allow you to do things better, faster, smarter than they were before, but it inherently isn't a competitive advantage where you should be looking at more and buying or partnering to just leverage it to be better where you're at, where you don't need to own it. You can rely on externals for even the management of it, the upkeep of it, depending on what you're looking at. So it really depends on how you apply this, because this will be applied to every function, every role
Mhm.
that's out there. You need to figure out, where are we going to use AI as a core component of what we do? Because just to give an example, your company may decide to use AI organizationally in how you do what you do as an advantage or as an optimizer. You may decide to include AI within your offering. This could be if you're a software company or a hardware company, and now AI is part of what you sell. And the third could be AI within the experience in which you engage with the world. That could be either through commerce, it could be through sales, it could be anything that you have where now AI is fundamentally changing the way that the world interacts with your company. So those are very different lenses to look through this. And honestly, because the technology is changing so much, at a bare minimum, if you don't have the staff to do this, because AI is not across all three of those categories, you're going to need to partner with companies that can help you just stay current on what can be done and how it can be done today. The technology is just changing too fast.
Yeah. And my shameless plug here is that Things Zero can help you, because that's what we're doing, trying to help people integrate their data and model it and make sure they can make the most out of AI in their systems. So, little plug in, I had to do it. Jeff, great, insightful conversation today. We will certainly see you again on the Zero In podcast. There's no reason why not, because you're just touching the top and tip, sorry, of the iceberg here. And there's so many more topics I want to dive with you in the future. Thanks for your time today. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for having me.